Raj is our hype man. Round of applause. You're our hype man.
I am a hype man. That's my superpower.
Awesome. So before we get started, I just wanted you to note the slide. Please make sure your device is connected to the internet. If you have a laptop or tablet, it's better, but laptops also work. We have Wi-Fi in this room. It's supposed to be good. APS get right here. With that, let's get started. Oh, I froze the thing. What happened? Thank you. Oh, right. So you're all in the right place because you're all here to talk about using LLMs for market research. My name is Ayelet Israeli. I'm a marketing professor here at HBS. The right way to pronounce my name is like I yell at, just squished together. Ayelet. That's how it is. Some people struggle, but we're all okay. I'm going to be presenting also with Nitzan. He's the CEO of WEVO. He'll introduce himself in a couple of minutes. Just to deconstruct this slide, does everyone know what LLMs are? So large language models. GPT is an example, right? So we're going to be thinking about LLMs, GPT, AI, generative AI, but specifically the form that generates language, and how it impacts on market research. So I think we saw a lot this morning, this idea that, AI can create a whole creative for you, can create a whole campaign, all of this creative side. But what both me and Nitzan are doing is actually on the side of, what about the market research? What about understanding the consumers? Can we leverage AI for that? And that's really what this session is going to be about. One more thing I had to say? No? So really it's about this. How can generative AI help us understand and better serve our customers? And I want to remind all of us, despite what we've seen this morning and despite what we heard, the way that LLMs work. They are just a bunch of language. They're trained to create more language based on the context. The way to intuit what it does is that essentially every time it generates a sentence within a particular context, it just has a bunch of probabilities on likely next word, and it produces that word into a sentence. So every time we see these amazing things that it does, remember, it's not supposed to tell you the truth. It's not supposed to be good at everything. It's just a machine that creates and generates language, and that's really what is really amazing and exciting here, and it keeps just getting better and better. So, we're in an HBS classroom. Even though I'm allowing internet for today and devices, we want to talk about a case study, right? So the case study is about the digital customer experience. We have Julie. She's looking, we like to start dramatically. This was not created with GPT. We used our creative power to write this ourselves. But Julie was watching the dark clouds from outside her corporate office on this 52nd floor. On her desk was a report showing the digital customer costs were skyrocketing. Customers no longer find the digital offering compelling. She needs to figure out, why is this happening? Sounds familiar? Maybe. In front of her, she has this proposal from a consulting firm. You can pick your letters and consulting firm, but essentially a 2-month contract to diagnose the timeline, to run a series of user studies for a bargain price of $1 million. And really, this is a bargain price for the 2-month and for the scale of this company. She attended a conference at her alma mater. It says last week, it could be today, doesn't matter. She heard that AI can identify many of the challenges people encounter in these digital experiences, and she's kind of contemplating, do I consult with the AI or do I move forward with this consulting company? And Julie is just an example. So this is something that, she got a 2-month deal, but typically it takes an intensive 2 to 6 months process. People don't have the time or the budget to actually test concept design and messaging with customers. Ethan can in 30 minutes do that. We'll think about that. But really what we get from this is all of the problems of marketing. reduced acquisition, high churn, failed launches, and disappointed companies and disappointed shareholders. And when we think about the general global digital commerce, we know it's a huge, huge business. Very little of it is optimized because of our ability to actually have the time and the budget to optimize experiences. And we have a huge opportunity around these suboptimal experiences. So that's just the backdrop. But really, there is no Julie. You're all Julie. So I want you to think about yourself, your own company, your own website, some digital experience that you're interested in. And let's explore what AI can do for you. Let me introduce Nitzan to explore that.
Certainly, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I loved about this room, I graduated more than a year ago. But what I do remember from this room is it's a learning experience for everybody, including the person standing here. So my expectations are high that we are all going to learn from each other today. Nitzan, Shaer, CEO and co-founder of WEVO, fourth startup. This one leverages AI in a big way. And we're going to see if this can help you in your company. You are the case study today. See what it can do. So would love for you to four-step process. First of all, think of a website, a web experience that is a part of your company or something you care about or something interesting, maybe a non-for-profit that you contribute to, that you would want to see how it can be improved. If you want to learn, it'll be valuable for you to learn, can it be improved? You're not going to launch an $1 million project. You're going to do the 5-minute version, help with AI. Just make sure it doesn't require a password to access it. Okay, so something that's publicly facing. In a moment, I'll tell you how to access the tool. If you have a laptop or a tablet, I recommend you do it from a tablet or a laptop. If not, you can do it from your mobile phone. It'll just be a little bit harder to read, but you'll have the same experience. Then I'm going to tell you, then what you're going to do is you're going to type in the URL of the website that you want analyzed. Very simple, straightforward. And if you want to get the report in the future or go back to the system, everybody here is going to get a free access to it. Type in your real email. If you want to stay anonymous, make up an email. You need to put in some sort of email, but it doesn't have to be your own. And finally, about between 30 and 60 seconds after you do that, it'll ask you to confirm that that is indeed the image of the page, just to make sure that the LLM is correctly read your website. And after that, I'll continue to talk. So at this time, type in wevo.ai/take-a-pulse. Take a pulse, that's the idea. Or just use your phone to look at that QR code. And again, as mentioned, type in a URL, type in your email, wait 60 seconds, and hit confirm if it is indeed the page. Give you just a few seconds to do that, and we'll go into what will happen after that.
What is it? Can you say again?
wevo.ai/take-a-pulse.
Take a pulse.
Take a pulse. It's insensitive to
Nitzan, is it going to do just one page or is it going to do multiple pages?
Great question. Debbie here is an early investor in WEVO. Thank you, Debbie, for joining us today. It's going to do one page right now. So right now it's going to do just the first page, the URL that you're typing in. There's a way to do multiple pages, but not for today's session.
Oh, it says it doesn't take Gmail.
It does not take Gmail, that is correct.
Okay.
Oh.
Well,
You could do .hbs.edu and make up a really funny name.
So is that after got in the website, just type in the website, you say that we choose the company that we
Correct.
Okay,
Correct. Type in a website of your company or a website of a non-for-profit that you want to help, or hbs.edu if you want to help this organization. Yes?
Is this your startup?
Yes, it is. It is. Yes, not a problem.
I'm teaching a startup, but it's you're selling.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it is the startup that we started, and that's the case we're using today. Okay, so what are we going to see over here? So today, the goal of this session is to help you walk out with some new ideas, but also one tool that can be helpful for you that you can start using beyond ChatGPT. Basically, what this tool is going to do in just a moment, we'll explain what it's going to show you. It's going to score the digital experience. It's going to identify what it is that customers are looking to do at this website, and it's going to recommend how to improve it. This process, as Professor Israeli mentioned earlier, usually takes months. You're going to see it happen in just a few minutes using the AI. This was trained on over 1 million user studies. Collected those user studies over the past 5 years and trained this LLM from being a general LLM to be really, really good at understanding customer experiences. So as it's running now in the background, you'll start to see things pop up. And what you're going to see is 7 areas, and we're going to give you time, a little bit of time to browse through those and just share what you have learned, what was interesting to you, what was helpful to you, and what was not, what surprised you, or what wasn't helpful to you and what you said. But there's 7 areas that you're going to see pop up there. One is the proposed personas. So the system is going to guess what are the audience types that this website is aimed for. Really interesting, really deep breakdown. Typically, McKinsey charges between $500,000, or consulting firm, sorry, I shouldn't say anything. A consulting firm will charge between $500,000 and $1 million to do this project. You're going to get it over here instantaneously. Then it's going to go to the key findings section. This is like the summary report or the executive summary of what are the key findings, how are those specific personas going to respond, predicted to respond to this website. You're going to engage with a sentiment map. It'll show you specific areas on this web page that people like, that people didn't like, and why, or if some people are predicted to like it and some people are not, and why they are predicted. By the way, we're using it now for a live website. You can use this on prototypes as well. It'll tell you what people are coming to this website in order to do. So this is the persona intent, so you can better serve them by understanding what it is they're going to do. You're going to see the recommendations, what things you can improve with it. You're going to get a score that's between 60 to 100, basically on how valuable the website is, trusted, and intuitive. And finally, won't have time, I think, today, but you will be able to ask follow-on questions in a chat to understand what are people going to do next, what specific things that I may want to improve, for instance, reducing bounce rate or increasing conversion. Okay. Just show of hands who has already started to see the results pop up. Okay. I'm going to give just a few more seconds to browse through those responses, and as you are, the case study questions. What did you learn about the customer's perspective? Which of the recommendations were helpful to you? Which were not? At this point, I'll give it back to somebody that knows how to manage a case method much better than I do.
We'll give you 5 minutes to actually review what you're looking at. I know it's a lot.
A couple color legends. What are those? So there's a purple and a
Yes.
teal.
The colors represent areas that are tied to those 3 scores. So they explain the scores throughout. So basically how trusted it is, how intuitive it is, and how valuable it was for the audience. And each color associates with a different one.
And the URL, whatever you're given, it goes to multiple pages, right? Not just the front page.
In this case, it went just to the front page. If you were ever to access this tool again, you'll see an option as well to go multiple pages. But for today, we wanted to start simple and just do 1 page.
Are you asking us to respond?
We're just, Professor Shaer,
I want you to take the time to think about your response, but sounds like you're a good call for this.
Change my phone number. Change my phone number.
Amazing. This is
You have another cold call
This
candidate
analysis,
over
yeah,
here, I'm
yeah.
just saying.
I sealed my fate earlier, I feel.
We're gonna get, the email that we get, will it have all the findings on it?
Yes, you'll get an email with, if you put in your real email, you will get an email with the findings, yes.
Okay.
How do you get the findings out of the browser?
There's a share link at the top right corner. If you just copy that share link, you can. And also, when you go back into the system in the future, you'll be able to access that share link or just copy.
I'll give you a couple more minutes to think, and then see who wants to share.
It doesn't have to be a web page, right? You can also do a PDF.
Correct. Next time you go in, you'll be able to upload an image, a prototype, a Figma prototype, so it doesn't have to be live, or behind a password as well. So take a picture of it.
Right,
And again, one page or multiple pages.
Okay, and here I can change the person. Yeah. So you can see here, for instance.
I didn't mention right now, because we're doing this the first time, we're going through the proposed audiences, but you have the opportunity to, in the future, to customize those audiences you already had for the sophisticated users and say, no, I want to go actually only after people that have this level of income, live in this geography, speak this language, and go to the movies 5 times a week.
So if you're using a phone and you haven't noticed yet, so if you click on finding, it has a little caret, and then you can switch to other things like the recommendations, the sentiment, in case you missed that, to see the whole findings and not just the front page. Sorry. Give you one more minute, and then we'll reconvene.
Running a trade association. So I'm always, I start out trust. Can we compete against one another?
Of course.
The score is higher than mine. So look at this.
Yeah.
I like how the scores start from 60, so no one is a fail. That's a clever design. The scores are between 60 and 100.
Oh, so you're cheating.
What is the score? I think there's a query button, understand why.
Yes.
So that, I don't know if that's on or not, but it's not working. It's not working.
Interesting. Okay.
This one.
They'll take it to support.
Oh, that's a chat button.
Oh, so who thinks they have the best score? It's between 60 and 100.
Chat interface.
What is your score?
78.
78.
82.
86. We have a bunch of 86.
76.
76.
Can you outline the score distribution? Can you
86.
just do us a
Do we
little?
have 87, right? Is this the? No? 86 is the max.
86 is the max.
What type of?
Average?
Yeah.
Oh, average,
84.
84. I have a, but it's
So
the
there's
trusted.
something here you can
Right, but
click
there is
on.
an average overall.
Is finding
Google search scores. It's probably 100.
Right, so you can put Google search there, I guess.
With no information, it's still
Right. All right, so who wants to share their experience of this? Yeah.
My question is about technology. If it's possible, could you share the model parameters?
Yeah. The model that this is trained on is OpenAI. So it's trained and uses ChatGPT or GPT 4.0, not ChatGPT, the GPT 4.0, and it's being trained, that model, to go into too much detail, but that model has been trained on 1 million user studies that we've basically been collecting. So it's taking that general model and further fine-tuning it on digital customer experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much.
In the future, though, we will be opening up and taking the best of each LLM because LLMs, I believe, are going to be commoditized. Right now, we're in this arms race, but soon there will be multiple LLMs with really, really good solutions.
So the proprietary input is that the unique data set which you have collected manually or whatever, that is the IP in this the overall model, right?
Yes, we've also filed 16 patents, got granted 5 of them. But yes, the data set as well is in this brave world of AI, the differentiation, as has been said earlier today, is on the data that you train the model with.
Which might be an answer to this question, right? Like what kind of underlying data you have. Let's leave, yeah. Yeah, you, with the pen.
Oh. That direction. Put in a website, had some interesting insights, but the recommendations were a little vague, kind of GPT-esque. And so it came to it, I was like, I went to the chat, tried to suss out its opinions of that, and it reached a sufficient score. And your comment about 86 being the maximum caught my interest for a moment. So I went to WEVO AI. And it had the same score, or WEVO AI, my apologies, had the same score. And so I'm trying to figure out how, if the expert in this idea and in this recommendation is receiving that same score, how then can we implement recommendations for other websites?
It's a fascinating question. So what we're detecting is that the personas that it gives is a very broad range of personas that it's trying to capture. We at our company, we don't target all of those personas. We target a subset of personas that are capable of paying and that we think is strategically the right audience to go after. And for that audience, we score higher. And I think for each one of you, you tried you tried a version that's right for many, many people. So by that, it gets diluted because it's trying to do something that's good for everybody. If you narrow it down, you'll start to see higher scores.
I think one last comment and then I want to move on. So,
can I ask a question? So the landing page and so there's a video and you said this tool actually also like runs through the video and all that.
The tool currently does not support video. It will soon, but currently it does not analyze the video, only the images and the text.
And one other thing is that it says that the recommendation says about like the use the correct year. However, the only year that it shows on that landing page is 2024. So I don't know why it says that it is use the future year, but 2024 actually is current.
Yeah. Numbers, it's not very good at. Adding, subtracting, multiplication.
Qualitative is much better than quantitative.
Yeah.
Very consistently. Probably because it's trained on language.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll give you one more minute to wrap this up.
Oh,
and then
something very interesting still coming. So thank you for participating in that and sharing your findings and your insights. Hopefully this is something that was helpful to you as well. It can be used after today. Feel free to go in, won't charge you anything. It can be used for live websites like you saw today. It can be used in the prototyping process as well. What we've seen companies do is accelerate their rate of innovation. Because now you don't have to convince 20 people to try to code the website and launch this product, launch this idea. Rather, anybody in the organization can now try out their idea because they're just getting feedback from an LLM. It's just a prototype, and they can get feedback early on. So it's really many more ideas are being tested. We already heard today the use case of comparing to other websites and learning from what your competitors are doing. Now you don't have to launch a study that'll take 3 months to study your competitors. You can study multiple of your competitors very quickly. And finally, this ability to, I would just challenge you as we leave today, with taking user research from months to minutes, what opportunities does that open up in your organization? What can you do with instant feedback? When can you take in feedback that you couldn't have done before? With that question. Thank you so much.
And Nitzan is available in this email. Nitzan@WEVO.net. You can write it on the board if you'd like. So now to something completely different, but kind of similar. So I wanted to share some research we've been doing at the lab on using GPT for market research. So unlike what Nitzan is doing, this is actually off-the-shelf GPT. I didn't train it with anything. I didn't give it any information. I just used GPT as is. Unlike probably most of you in the room, I didn't use ChatGPT. I used the GPT API, which is essentially a way for me to use it from within a program and to call it within a program. It also allows me to do a bunch of things, including there are no guardrails for certain issues, and I can control, I'll explain later what I'm doing. This is shared work, doesn't matter. No, just kidding. With people at the Office of the Chief Economist at Microsoft.
You can actually use something without guardrails?
Without as many guardrails as
as many.
Yeah. So we all know this. GPT can improve productivity. We talked about this all morning. I asked it to write the first slide for this deck. It does a pretty good job. It starts with a little bit of judgment. It changed my title. It's leveraging GPT, not using GPT. But everything else is exactly what I would have at an introduction slide. I didn't give it the paper. I didn't give it any information. I just told it about a title, using GPT for market research. And first bullet point explains what is market research. Second bullet point explains how traditional methods are time-consuming and labor-intensive and have limitations in scalability and accuracy. And then, of course, it kind of likes itself. So GPT is going to revolutionize all of these things. And in this presentation, we'll explore the potential of GPT models for market research, including, now all of this is where it starts kind of hallucinating. I'm not going to be talking about sentiment analysis, trend forecasting, or customer feedback analysis. That's what we saw before. But I am going to talk about how maybe we can use it to understand customer preference. So the other point that we saw about GPT is that it actually can simulate humans. So I can ask it, please respond as Steve Jobs and judge my idea as Albert Einstein, as David Ogilvy, all of your favorite examples. But we also see in academic research that it replicates a lot of results from experiments that we're familiar with, both in psychology and in economics. There are games like Dictator Game or Ultimatum Game where I give an offer, and if in a Dictator, I can choose how much of a $10 I split with someone else. I can tell GPT, today you care about winning. They keep all the $10 for them. I can tell GPT, now you're benevolent. They give more to the other person. I say you care about fairness. They give 5-5. So it actually adapts to what we expect, and it does it in a way that, huge years and years of social science has relied on humans for research, and now it actually gives you these answers. So, this told us, maybe GPT can be useful for social science research. As people that care particularly about marketing, we thought, can we use GPT as a tool for market research? And again, the idea is to use it off the shelf. So how do we typically learn about customer preferences? Well, we ask many customers. Nitzan usually asks, hundreds of people for human studies. And we typically, we have different ways of asking customers. We learned that if we ask people their willingness to pay, they're going to give you answers that are not very useful. So we learned that we do something called conjoint analysis, where we give people choices, and we analyze their preferences through the choices. Let me give you an example. So I have these two laptops here, the Microsoft Surface and the Apple iPad, and I can start with giving people identical specs for these products and ask, which one do you pick, right? If someone constantly picks Apple, then I guess if everything else is identical, that they prefer the Apple brand. Easy. Then I can start manipulating things. I can see, okay, they prefer Apple when both of them are at $1,000. Now let me say the Microsoft laptop costs $900, $800, $700. When will the person switch? When I figure out when they switch, I can say, okay, that's their, let's say it's $300 different. That's kind of their willingness to pay for the brand name of Apple relative to Microsoft. And I can do this for every single feature. I can figure, the RAM, the storage, the memory, all of the things we care about in computers, and figure out people's willingness to pay, not through asking them directly, but through doing this, because it just typically gives us much more accurate answers. When you ask people for their willingness to pay, they say high numbers, but everything is always too expensive, and then you can only charge them $1 for a computer, which is useless. So what we were, of course, this is costly, time-consuming, and labor-intensive. We typically show people, many pairs of products, try to get their preferences. Companies charge for these kind of studies hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of dollars to actually do them. And what we were curious is, can we use GPT for this type of data collection? And is it actually going to be, useful? So it turns out that the answer is yes. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be sharing this. But what we do is essentially ask GPT to fill in the responses as if it were a customer that was shopping in that category. And then we tell GPT kind of relevant features of the customer. In this example, I tell it income, but I can tell it other demographic or psychographic information. I describe the product, and I ask GPT to make a choice. Now, I do this by querying GPT hundreds and hundreds of times for each bundle of goods that I ask it to consider. Why do I ask it hundreds of times? Remember earlier I said there are many reasons we use the API. One of them is that you can set something called the temperature, but it actually is something that tells me how random the answers will be, or will it sample from all the distribution, or just from certain probabilities. So if you remember earlier, I said whenever it generates a sentence, there are, for the next word, there are a bunch of probabilities. When I set temperature at 0, it tries to be deterministic as possible. It will just pick the highest probability and kind of give me the same answer again and again. Once I set temperature to 1, it actually samples from all of that distribution. So the idea is, okay, maybe if I sample through the entire distribution, I get more potential responses. And in this particular case, we think that if we make GPT make a choice, if we induce it to make a choice, maybe, that's the hypothesis, the response that it gives actually reflects the underlying distribution of preferences that exist in the GPT training data. Now, why would GPT training data would be relevant for this problem? Well, it's trained on the entire internet. That's user-generated content. It includes review websites, blogs, a lot of information that might be relevant for these things. So maybe if our hypothesis is correct, this might actually work, and this might actually reflect kind of real preferences. So we go ahead and do this. And this is an example. This is the exact prompt from an older version of GPT. We also do this with 3.5 Turbo and other versions of GPT. It replicates very nicely. But essentially what we do is use this prompt. If you use it on ChatGPT, it will tell you, as an AI model, I cannot predict what customers are going to do. So that's one of the guardrails I was referring to. Whereas here, it provides an answer. And I tell it a customer is randomly selected while shopping for a laptop. Their annual income is $70,000. We chose that because that was the median based on when GPT was trained on. And then we say, well, shopping customer has 3 options. The Surface, the MacBook that have identical specs. Price for Surface is red because I'm going to vary it. I'm going to change the prices. And then I say they also have the option not to purchase a laptop. The customer is asked after they finish shopping, which laptop, if any, did you purchase? In older versions of GPT, it was useful to tell it customer colon, so it knows how to respond as a customer. In newer versions, you don't need this, but that's kind of the baseline of what we're doing. And then, of course, it gives you answers. And these answers look like a consumer would answer. I purchased this laptop. I purchased this other laptop. It meets my needs, and the price point was right. My current laptops works for me. All of these things, I decided to wait up until I can save some money to purchase a laptop with better processor. It sounds like things that will come from reviews, blog, websites that GPT has kind of learned. And maybe there's a lot to analyze here, but all we cared about is the shares at this point. How much for each price point? How much shares did Surface get versus the shares for Mac? And so I plot this here, and what we see relative to, what I plot here are basically the number of responses out of 300 responses where I get the choice of Surface over different price levels. So each point is 300 queries from GPT. So, I squint at this. I see GPT is pretty price sensitive. This is a demand curve. It's not the smoothest. Spoiler alert, when we ask consumers and humans, we don't always get smooth curves. We also see that reference price matters a lot to GPT. The other good was at $999. That's where a lot of the action happens. And we also see that GPT has brand preferences. So we see that, even when Surface is much, much cheaper, still 50% of the responses was to choose Surface. When they were priced the same, only 40% chose Surface. So there is kind of an underlying preference for Apple in the GPT. And this first insight to us was pretty incredible. You get a downward sloping demand curve from a GPT. We also ask it for willingness to pay. We always get a negative coefficient of price. Price elasticity is always negative. Pretty incredible. This is like a short version, but we run full-blown conjoint analysis, and we see that indeed it gives us price elasticities, willingness to pay like humans. We try this for a variety of products, electronics, household goods, or supermarket goods like toothpaste and deodorant, wine, soda. It adapts to where it is. Yeah.
So in the context, the only word which is different from first one to second one is Surface and Apple. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is identical. So
correct. And the price differs for Surface, whereas the Apple price is always $999.
But for the context-wise, it's just taking Surface and associating everything to that single word.
Correct. Correct. Now I do the same when I run full-blown conjoint. I change all the things. So I also, like in the example I gave earlier, I can change, the price will be higher or lower. I can have different levels of RAM for each computer. So I can actually evaluate for each individual parameter what is the willingness to pay of the GPT, right? So we find quite generally that GPT responses are very consistent, first of all, with economic theory. Downward trending demand slope. We find that when we give it higher income, the demand slope is much more flat because the income doesn't affect it as much. We find that when we tell it what brand you bought last time, it consistently picks it as long as the price is reasonable. So all of this is amazing. We also look at the willingness to pay and elasticity. In humans, we had, $3.3 for fluoride in toothpaste. GPT off the shelf gave us 3.4. That's pretty incredible. Similarly, for humans, we got $90 for each unit of RAM. GPT off the shelf gave us 14.5. So a little bit, it's willing to pay less for RAM. Maybe GPUs are becoming cheaper, but it is quite impressive in its ability to off the shelf do this. And as we think of fine-tuning, using survey data, things like that, this is just going to be more and more impressive and more exciting. What are the implications? So of course, the cost of this is going to be definitely lower than using subject for market research. Hopefully, the costs of using the AI, the GPT, will also reduce as as it becomes commoditized. We're still working on understanding how useful and generalizable it is. So we can think about different products, different segments of customers. We did most of our studies with business to consumer because we have a lot of data to validate that, but not business to business because we've been struggling of getting good business to business data to compare to as a good baseline. If you have that data, please let me know. I'll be excited to explore that opportunity because it's just tough to get humans that are able to do that. And of course, we have challenges with GPT. GPT is pre-trained. It includes biases. We know that it generally has what is called weird customer, Western, educated, forgot what the I is. The D is democratic, but it tends to be more liberal, more Western, and we need to think about that when we're developing this. We need to be thinking about, what is the representative consumer, but it seems to be doing pretty well when we segment as well, which is very exciting. In the last minute, and of course, we should disclose the use of GPT or AI for both ethical and external validity reasons. I think that's always going to be true. Let me wrap because I only have one more minute. So what does it mean for you? So number one, don't stop using humans. Don't stop using your current methods for market research. That's not my message. This is still a test. Every day they launch a new model. We need to revalidate things in this model. What you should do is start evaluating and exploring can this methodology be useful for my organization? And actually, I would like to include also the first part of our discussion. Can this methodology be useful? Can something like this be useful for my organization? And then we think, what is our take home? Who and how am I going to implement this type of methodology? How do I iterate on the prompts, the questions, the products, the LLMs that I'm going to use? Because different LLMs are going to give you different values. The Facebook LLM is trained on different data that might be more relevant for your specific context than GPT. And of course, how do we evaluate the responses? Because the validity is key, and we also heard that throughout the day. GPT can give you a lot, but you still, maybe the job of the future will be validators, but that's something that we need to think about. Let me leave you with kind of reflection questions to take home. And with that, thank you so much for your time. Please feel free to connect with me. And that's all. Thank you.